This is Lesson 1.2, Order of Operations. Your objectives are to evaluate numerical expressions by using the order of operations and to evaluate algebraic expressions by using the order of operations. Evaluate numerical expressions. Numerical expressions often contain more than one operation. To evaluate them, use the rules for order of operations shown below. Step 1 is evaluate expressions inside grouping symbols, like fraction bars, brackets, especially parentheses. Notice parentheses begins with P, remember that. Step 2 is evaluate all powers. Those would be the exponents. Exponents begins with E. Step 3, do multiplication and division left to right, which means sometimes you would divide before you multiply. Just do them together, left to right. Step 4 is add and subtract left to right. Sometimes you might subtract before you add. Take the first letter from each of those words, P-E-M-D-A-S, and you can remember that order using this sentence. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Please for parentheses, excuse for exponents, my dear for multiplication and division, Aunt Sally for addition and subtraction. And do remember, sometimes you might divide before you multiply, and sometimes you might subtract before you add. Read them left to right. For example 1, you're doing 3 to the 4th power. There's only one operation here, and that's the exponent. So you can just evaluate that. Remember, the exponent means multiply 3 by itself 4 times, and the result is 81. B is 6 cubed. Again, there's only one operation here, and that is the exponent. So we will do that. To cube something means to multiply it by itself that many times, so 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. Evaluate each expression. For example, 2a, we have lots of operations going on. So we need to use the order of operations. Remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Please is first, that's parentheses. We have 2 sets of parentheses here. Do the one that is the innermost parentheses. And that would be your 12 divided by 3, which becomes 4. Now we're down to just one set of parentheses. Work inside there. We have 2 plus 4 squared. Addition or exponents? Well, exponents come first. That would be 4 squared, which becomes 16. We still have parentheses there. There's only one operation now, 2 plus 16. That becomes 18. And finally, you have 3 times 18, and that's 54. Always do the order of operations. Parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide left to right, add and subtract left to right. For example, 2b, let's evaluate this. Are there any parentheses or other grouping symbols? And yes, there are. We have that fraction bar. So when you have a fraction bar, you can evaluate the numerator and denominator separately. In the numerator, 3 plus 2 cubed, do 2 cubed first because that's an exponent which comes before addition, and that gives you 8. In the numerator you now have 3 plus 8, which becomes 11. The numerator is finished, so go to the denominator. 4 squared times 3. Do you do exponents first or multiplication? You do exponents. 4 squared is 16. Then you have 16 times 3, which is 48. Your answer is 11 over 48. If that were able to reduce, then you would reduce it, but this one is finished. Evaluate each expression. Number 1 is 5 squared. There's only one operation to do here, which is squaring the 5. So the answer is simply 25. Number 3 is 10 to the 4th power. The exponent is the only operation, so that's the one we'll do. 10 to the 4th is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, which is 10,000. Five is 8 cubed. 8 cubed is 8 times 8 times 8, which is 512. Remember, when your only operation is an exponent, evaluate the exponent. And remember, an exponent means multiply the base number by itself that many times. For number 7, now we have several operations, so we have to follow the order of operations. Parentheses is first. We do have parentheses. In the parentheses, we have 8 minus 4, which is 4. Now we have 4 times 2, which is 8. Number 9, you have addition and multiplication. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Multiplication is before additions, so do 8 times 1 first. 8 times 1 is 8. Now you have 10 plus 8, which is 18. For number 11, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Are there any parentheses? Yes, do those first. In the parentheses is 20 minus 17, which is 3. Now you have multiplication, subtraction, and multiplication. Do the multiplication first. 12 times 3 is 36. Now you have subtraction and multiplication. Do the multiplication first. 3 times 6 is 18. And 36 minus 18 is 18. Number 13, there are no parentheses. We do have exponents. There's a 3 squared. It's a 9. There's another exponent, 2 squared. That becomes a 4. There's no more exponents. What about multiplication and division? Left to right, 9 divided by 3 is the first one we see. That's a 3. Left to right, 4 times 7 is the next one. That's a 28. We now have one more division. That's the 20 divided by 5, which is 4. And now addition and subtraction left to right. We will add first. That's a 31 for the 3 plus 28. And 31 minus 4 is 27. Number 15, remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Please is parentheses. You have 2 sets. Do the innermost one. 3 times 7 plus 4. Do multiplication first. That's a 21. The innermost parentheses now says 21 plus 4. That's a 25. In those brackets, you have 5 times 25. That's 125. And finally, 250 divided by 125 is 2. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Number 17, you have a fraction bar. Do the numerator first. You have parentheses. In the parentheses is 5 squared. 5 squared is 25. Now in the numerator, you have multiplication and subtraction. Do the multiplication left to right. 4 times 25 is 100. You have another multiplication in the numerator. Do that before the subtraction. 4 times 3 is 12. Finish up the numerator. 100 minus 12 is 88. In the denominator, you have parentheses. In the parentheses, multiply or add. You multiply next. 4 times 5 is 20. Still in the parentheses, 20 plus 2. That's a 22. Finish up the denominator. 4 times 22 is 88. And 88 divided by 88 is 1. Evaluate algebraic expressions. Algebraic expressions may contain more than one operation. Algebraic expressions can be evaluated if the values of the variables are known. First, replace the variables with their values, then use the order of operations to calculate the value of the resulting numerical expression. Always remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division left to right, addition and subtraction left to right. Evaluate x cubed plus 5 times the quantity y minus 3 if x equals 2 and y equals 12. First, substitute x with 2 and y with 12. Notice the x is now a 2 and the y is now a 12. Then follow the order of operations. I would have done 12 minus 3 first, making it a 9. But notice, they did the exponent first here. 2 cubed is an 8. Because it's separated by that plus sign, and we're not going to add until later, they can do that. Only go out of order if you are absolutely certain that it's okay. I would recommend, though, only follow the order of operations. Once they get down here, 5 times 9 is 45, and 8 plus 45 is 53. Evaluate each expression if x equals 2, y equals 3, z equals 4, a equals 4/5, and b equals 3/5. We'll substitute the values in first, then follow the order of operations. Number 1 is x plus 7. Well, x equals 2, so substitute 2 for the x, and 2 plus 7 is 9. Number 3, x plus y squared. Substitute first. X is 2, y is 3. 2 plus 3 squared. Exponents before addition, 3 squared becomes 9. And 2 plus 9 equals 11. Substitute, then follow the order of operations. Number 5, 6a plus 8b. Substitute for the variables first. A is 4/5 and b is 3/5. We have multiplication, addition, and multiplication. Multiply first from left to right. 6 times 4/5. You can put the 6 over 1 and then multiply straight across. 24/5. Now you have addition and more multiplication. Multiply first. 8 times 3/5. Put the 8 over 1 and then multiply straight across. Another 24/5. 24/5 plus 24/5 is 48/5. Leave your answer improper. Improper answers are best. Number 7, y squared over x squared. Substitute the variables first. Y is 3 and x is 2. We have a fraction, so let's do the numerator first. 3 squared is 9. Now do the denominator. 2 squared is 4. And your answer is 9/4. Leave it as an improper fraction. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division left to right, addition and subtraction left to right. For number 9, substitute for the variables first. X is 2, y is 3, z is 4. Now follow the order of operations. You have parentheses. Inside the parentheses you have multiplication and addition. Multiply left to right. Do 2 times 3 first, which is a 6. Then do the 3 times 4, which is 12. Finish up within your parentheses. 6 plus 12 is 18. And finally, 2 times 18 is 36. Number 11, begin by substituting for the variables. X is 2, y is 3, and now follow the order of operations. You have grouping symbols in the form of a fraction bar. Do the numerator first. Multiplication or subtraction. Multiply first. Left to right. Do the 3 times 2, which is 6. Still in the numerator, multiply or subtract. Multiply 6 times 3, and you get 18. Finish up the numerator. 18 minus 4 is 14. For the denominator, you only have multiplication. Do the 7 times 2 to get 14. And 14 divided by 14 is 1. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. For number 13, first, substitute the values for the variables. Z is 4, y is 3, and x is 2. We do have a fraction bar, so we'll do the numerator first. In the numerator, you have exponents and subtraction. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Exponents will be first. Do them left to right. 4 squared is 16. Now we have subtraction and exponents. Do the other exponent. 3 squared, which is 9. Finish up the numerator. 16 minus 9 is 7. Now for the denominator. 2 squared is the only operation. Do that. 2 squared is 4, and you're left with 7/4. Number 15. Start by substituting in the variables. Z is 4, y is 3, and x is 2. We have a fraction bar, so let's separate the fraction and do the numerator first. In the numerator, we do have parentheses. Within the parentheses, we have 4 minus 3. So we'll do that first. 4 minus 3 is 1. Now in the numerator, we have 1 squared. So we'll do that. 1 squared is 1. The denominator is just 2. We're now finished. The answer is half. For number 17, start by substituting in the values. A is 4/5, B is 3/5, and Y is 3. We have a fraction bar, so let's do the numerator first. On the numerator, we do have an exponent there, so let's square the 4/5. When you square a fraction, square the numerator and the denominator, so that becomes 16 over 25, because 4 squared is 16 and 5 squared is 25. Now we can multiply left to right, so let's do 5 times 16 over 25, put the 5 over 1, and you can reduce the 5 and the 25 are both divisible by 5. 5 becomes a 1 and 25 becomes a 5, giving you 16/5. We now have multiplication in the numerator, so multiply. You get 48 over 25, and that's divided by 3. This can be simplified. When you divide fractions, remember you can change to multiplication and flip the second one. So if I'm dividing by 3, I'm really multiplying by 1/3. Switch to multiplication and flip the second one. 3 and 48 are both divisible by 3, so reduce first. And then when you multiply, you get 16 over 25. For number 19, let's substitute the variable values in first. X is 2, Z is 4, Y is 3, Z is 4. Now I have parentheses. However, I'm thinking ahead, and both of these fractions have a denominator of 4, and they will both be squared, giving us a denominator of 16. Since I'm adding, I want the denominators to be the same. So I'm not going to reduce 2/4. I'm going to leave it the way it is and watch what happens. So let's now move to exponents. Square 2/4 and you get 4 over 16. I'll now square the 3/4 and get 9 over 16. If I had reduced before, I would have 1/4 plus 9 over 16, and then I would have had to get a common denominator. However, thinking ahead allowed me to keep the common denominator and not have to worry about that now. Adding these fractions together, you get 13 over 16. For number 21, start by substituting in for the variables. Z is 4, X is 2, Y is 3, Y is 3, X is 2, and Z is 4. Now do the order of operations. Parentheses first. I have 2 sets. We'll go left to right. On the left, within the parentheses, you have a fraction. Do the numerator first. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2/3 is finished. Now let's move to the other set of parentheses. Within those parentheses, there's another fraction. Do the numerator first, 3 divided by 2. That won't go evenly, so I'll just leave it as the fraction 3/2. 3 divided by 2 is 3/2, and that is divided by 4. Since I have 3/2 divided by 4, let's switch to multiplication and we'll flip the 4. That gives you 3/2 times 1/4. Switch to multiplication and flip the 4 to 1/4. Add or multiply? Multiply. That becomes 3/8. I need a common denominator. The lowest common multiple of 3 and 8 is 24. 3 times 8 is 24. And 8 times 3 is 24. Your new fractions are 16 over 24 and 9 over 24. And when you add those together, you get 25 over 24. So remember your order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses first, then exponents. Then multiply and divide together, left to right. Remember, you might divide some before you multiply. Then add and subtract together, left to right. You might subtract before you add. Make sure everything is in simplest form, so make sure your fractions are reduced. Improper fractions are best, and then you'll be ready.